Okay, so my allergies are still kind of working, so there may be a few coughs going through this thing, but I'll try to get through this. So this is Word Module 2. Word Module 2 deals mainly with stuff that you guys are going to be dealing with in the future, and that's writing papers. There's a lot of papers. When you're a college student, you get to write a lot of papers. It gets worse as you go along. It gets worse and it gets better. It gets worse in that the number of papers that you have to write increases, but it gets better because the more you write papers, the easier they are to write. When I was in graduate school, I could put away a paper like a 10, 12 page paper over a weekend. So you get better at it. So we're going to discuss this. So first thing to talk about. When you're in a class and your instructor says that they're going to have you write a paper, chances are real good that they're going to tell you that there's a particular style manual that they want to use. This will be something like MLA, Chicago, APA, one of those. I'm kind of familiar with APA because that's when I was in college. That's what I had to write in a lot. MLA is fairly common also, and it's kind of similar to MLA. I'm sorry, to APA. So whatever your instructor says the style manual is that you're going to use, learn it. Make sure you know it. You can go on Amazon and order a copy, a little booklet that will kind of give you some examples of stuff. And there's lots of online resources for this also. But whatever style manual they tell you to use, just make sure you know how to use it and what you need to do in terms of writing a paper. Now, when you're using Word to write a paper, it's not set up for writing in papers right out of the box. In other words, so like here, I have Word. I just opened it up to a blank document, and you can see that my font is Calibri and my font size is 11. A couple of other things, and I'll show you in here. This is a good place to look at it. Normally, when you're writing a paragraph, let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. This is, oops, if I grab it. For some reason, not let me grab it. Oh, there it is, because I got that open. This is a paper that I wrote when I was in college. And so as an example, for the paragraph structure, you'll see that like paragraphs we have a first line indent, so it kind of, on every paragraph there's a line indent. There's no special spacing after a paragraph or before a paragraph, it's just double spaced. All of the entire paper is double spaced. So Word is not set up to do that. So if I go back in here and I look at how this is set up, there's a space after the paragraph, so spacing after says 8 point. My line spacing says multiple, and I need it to be double. My special indent, I have none, which it should be first line. So to kind of show you what I'm talking about, I've already done the typing, and I just mean this the typing for the document that they want you to create in Module 2. I'm going to go to it now. Boom. You can find this in Readings, Trainings, and Tests. I'm going to go to Microsoft Word and Module 2 because it's what we're working on, and Class Files, and then Mod 2 before. Still got the dialog box open. Okay. Let's get it open now. Alright. So I'll go ahead and do this other one. Maybe I can show you the difference in this one after. Okay, so this is the same document. So this is, if I were to just open up Word and start typing this document the way that it wants to, this is what it would look like. You see that we have no first line indent. Everything just goes straight up to the margin. And in between paragraphs, also everything is single spaced. And in between paragraphs, I have an extra space. So this is the way it shows paragraphs. It's like bulk of words, and then a space, and then more sentences. So that's the way Word kind of comes when you just turn on Word and start typing. Now, what we need for APA or MLA, we need it to look something a little bit more like this. And I just closed down the document that I'm going to need. Go back here and grab that thing. Back here. And before. Alright. So this is the way it looks out of the box, but if we're using APA style or MLA, it needs to look something more like this. Everything, all the paragraphs have a indentation from the margin. Everything is double spaced, and there's no space after the paragraph. So we need to set this up. Now, if I open up Word and just try to create just a blank document, boom, let's go to New and go to a blank document. You'll see that it opens up and it looks like this. We got our Calibri is our font style, 11 points. It's going to be set up the same way I just showed you. There is no first line indent, there is space after the paragraph, and I have multiple spacing instead of double. And what this is this is using our normal style. So normal style says Calibri 11 point, single space, no first line indent, space after the paragraph. We need to change this. We need to modify how we're going to type. Now, I don't want you guys to get confused because I know I keep typing things just so we don't have to deal with all the typing. Normally, this is not. You're not going to type a document and then go through and change it. Normally, you're going to change how it's going to be. It's going to be presented before you start typing. So just kind of forget that I've already typed this. We're going to change the way Word works before we even start typing. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to say that this needs to be Times New Roman, so I can slide this all the way down and go to Times New Roman. This needs to be a 12-point font. Our paragraph, our grouping, some of the things that I need have buttons, but not everything, so I'll just go in here because this has everything that I need. So my indentation is under special. I need a first line indent. And then space after the paragraph needs to be 0. So I click that down to 0. And my line spacing needs to be double. So now this is set up to write in either APA or MLA. Either one of these will work. But what I can also do is I can change normal to be that. So I can right click on normal and then update normal to match selection. Yeah. And now everything, you can see everything is going to be done this way. So you can even see, I'm going to turn on my rulers, view, ruler. So you can see, like, here's my first line, and you can see I have a first line indent of a 1/2 inch on this document. So now when I start typing, it's going to go blah, blah, blah. I'll just show you. I'm just typing garbage just to get down to the next line. All right, so now I want to create a paragraph. Boom. And again, every time I do that, I'm going to get a first line indent. So you need to do that to start typing. And you need to change this just so, like, every time, you know, if you didn't have this, every time you went to create a new paragraph, you'd also have to hit tab. So you'd have to hit enter to create the new paragraph and then hit tab to get the first line indent. Well, you don't want to do that. You just want to type. So if you turn on, if you go into paragraphs and get this all set up with the first line indent, every time you hit enter, it's going to go down to a new line and already have the first line indented for you. All right, and so when you get done, it's going to look a little bit more like this. It's going to look a little bit more like this. So that's the way you set Word up. So what I'm going to do now is, because I've already got this other document typed, if I can find it, this one, I'm going to change a few things just to get them to where we need to be. I'm going to enable editing on this, and then what I'll do is I'll select the main body of this document like this, and then I'll go through and I'll say I want this thing to be actually I'm going to select everything first. I'm just going just so I can do my fonts. So my fonts are going to be Times New Roman, and it's going to be a 12 point. Oops, I didn't get all that, did I? I think that needs to be Times New Roman 2, Times New Roman 12. Alright, so there's the font part of it set up. Now I'm going to do the paragraph part. So I'm going to go into here, and I'm just going to select my paragraphs this time. So I'm going to go to here, and I'm going to go to, say this is going to be a first line indent. I'm going to get rid of the spacing after the paragraph, and I'm going to say it needs to be double spaced. And say OK, and so now things are starting to look a little bit better. Okay. Next thing, let's talk about, I'm going to go ahead and center this title, just because it needs to be, and then I'll make these all right aligned. And I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to make them single spaced. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make them single spaced, right aligned, and then I'm going to, actually what I'll do is I'll put these in the header. So I'm going to go up here, and I'm just going to type this stuff again. Oswald Carter. Whoops. Are you? Inner. And I'll just worry about the date later because I want to show you how to insert a date anyway. So here's all this stuff. Now, and then I'm going to go down here and go ahead and get rid of this. So first off, how I got into headers was I just double clicked up here. So like if I'm in this document, if I want to get into headers, I can just double click up here in the top margin, and it takes me into headers. And this also turns on footers too. And when you're in header mode, you can kind of see things are a little bit different because you can see how like this is all bold and this is kind of grayed out. So this is how I would create my headers. I'm going to go into this document and see if I can't. Let's get out of this thing. I'm going to get rid of this because I don't need it. And delete. So I can get back up in headers. So this is all this stuff is going to be in my headers. Now headers will appear at the top of every single page, and however you type, whatever you type, will appear at the top of every page in a header. A footer, everything that you type will appear at the bottom of the page using a footer. So think of this like if you're reading reading a book or something like that. Up at the top of the page, you may see something like the author's name and the title of the book, or maybe the chapter, or something like that. You may see something on odd pages and something on even pages, and you can set that up using different odd and even pages here. At the bottom, you will see probably a page number centered at the bottom of the page. So these are headers and footers that are set up to create something that's going to appear at the top and the bottom of every page. So like I created this header, and this header is like the more I type, the more pages that I type, this will appear at the top and bottom of every page. Now, or top of every page because it's a header. Let's suppose I want to just modify this thing. So again, I'm going to select it, and I'm just going to go home, and I'm going to make it. I'm going to make this right aligned, and just to show you the date thing, because I didn't do that earlier. If I wanted to create a date, I can go into Insert, and you see my insertion point is over here on the right margin where it should be. And then I can go into my new Header and Footer Tools ribbon that just showed up just because I'm in Headers and Footers. And I can do things like click on Date and Time, and it will insert the date for me. I can click on like how I want the date to look and say OK, and it will pop that date in there. Now, to get the footers, I can either scroll down and get the footers, or I can click on the footer button in my header footer ribbon to get the footers. So let's suppose that I want on every page of this document, I want to have a footer that says the word page and then a colon, a space, and then the page number. So if I wanted to do something like this, I'm just going to go click into footers just so I can get down into my footers where I'm going to be typing. And I want it centered, so I'm going to go home, center, and then I'm just going to start typing page, colon, space. Now, what I said was anything you type in a header or footer is going to appear at the top and bottom of every page. So I type page : space because I want that to appear. But I don't want to type the number 1 because I'm on page 1. I don't want to type that number because if I type that number, what is going to happen is every page will be page 1. I want to have a page 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So instead of typing the number, what I'm going to go up to again is my header footer ribbon, and there's a button over here that says page number. And I've already got this where I got my insertion point in the document where I want my page number to go, so I can say current position, and then I just want it to be a plain number. So there you have a plain number 1. So that is the way you set up headers and footers in Word. All right, so I'm still in header footer mode. You can see that like this is still kind of dark, and my regular part of my document is grayed out. I can click on close header footer to get out of it, or I should be able to just double click into the body of the document, and you'll see that I'm now back in normal mode, and my header and footer are all kind of grayed out. All right, so let's talk these little red squiggly lines, and you see I got a couple of blue lines too. All right, so red squiggly lines, what that means is the document or the word that's underlined, it doesn't necessarily mean that the word is misspelled. Only thing that it means is the word is not in Microsoft's dictionary. So I'm going to use my name as an example. My last name is Brewer. Brewer is not an uncommon last name. It also happens to be the name of a baseball team. It also has to be an occupation and a hobby. So Brewer is not an uncommon word, so it's probably will show up in Microsoft's dictionary. But if you have a if you have a weird last name, always use Lipschitz just because it's a strange, unusual last name. If you have a name like Lipschitz, you're probably, even when it's spelled correctly, you will probably get a red squiggle underneath your name. Just because it's not in Microsoft's dictionary. Now, you might be under the impression it's like, I just know that Lipschitz is always going to get that squiggle because it's not in Microsoft's dictionary. But here's the thing, and you just choose to ignore it. But if you choose to ignore the red squiggle, what it's going to do is it's going to give you the red squiggle when it's spelled correctly or incorrectly. So it's kind of a better idea to add Lipschitz to Microsoft's dictionary so that it will not put the red squiggle underneath the word Lipschitz if it's spelled correctly, but it will put it underneath if it's spelled incorrectly. So to add something to Microsoft's dictionary, and you see I've got a couple of red squiggles there that are spelled. This should be permanent. If I right click on this, the red squiggly line, I get some options of what it thinks I might want to use, or I get this option to add it to dictionary. So if I add like Lipschitz to dictionary, when it's spelled correctly, I won't get that red squiggly line when I type it correctly, but I will get the red squiggly line if I type it incorrectly. I'm going to go ahead and change this to permanent just so this thing is right. This should be sound, and again, if I right click on it, you'll see that it gives me what it thinks I might have meant to type, and there is sound that I want to type. And so that gets rid of the red squiggly lines. Now, we have a couple of blue lines underneath some stuff. This A, lower volume, looks fine, enabling wearers to listen at a lower volume. What's wrong with that? Well, sometimes when you get this, it's little things that you miss. So if I turn on this little show hide, which I could kind of tell you guys to keep on at the very beginning, you can kind of see, I'll zoom in a little bit, you can kind of see what I've got here is 2 spaces after A. So if I get rid of one of those spaces, even though it doesn't show up, even though it doesn't do anything, it just lets me know that I did something wrong. Here I have similarly that's underlined. I can right click on it, and it says it should be similarly comma, and it adds that comma in there for me. So just by right clicking, it's like it gave me those options. All right, So, and right clicking just means click the right mouse button. All right, I want to show you something else. I'm gonna go back to this document. Get out of this mess. I'm gonna delete this. Let's see. I never know whether I'm typing this right or wrong. Okay, type it wrong. All right, so achieve, A-C-H-E-I-V-E. I just typed this, and it's wrong because it breaks that whole I before E except after C or something like that. So it's wrong, and I just typed it, and it's wrong. But watch what happens after I type it and I hit the spacebar. Watch what happens to this word. Boom. It changed it for me automatically. So there are these things called autocorrect. And what they are just like commonly misspelled, mistyped words. And it will automatically change things for you. So this is one of them. And the way to see what's in autocorrect, I can click on File, and then go to Options down here at the bottom. And then I'm going to go to Proofing, and then Autocorrect Options. And when I look at this whole list are my autocorrect options. So I'm going to see if I can find Achieve. And there it is, right there. This one. So it tells me that if I ever type A-C-H-E-I-V-E, it will automatically change that to A-C-H-I-E-V-E. So there are a bunch of things that are in there that you can that are automatically going to change for you. So if I like accommodate with just one C at the very beginning, it's going to change it to 2 C's. It's going to automatically do that. It's not going to ask me. It's not going to give me a red squiggle. It's not going to do any of that because it's in the autocorrect group. So, but the cool thing is you can actually use this for your own benefit. So I can add things to it. So I can go up here and say, I want to say anytime I type JCTC, I wanted to type Jefferson Community and Technical College. TCH. Got an H. Technical College. So I wanted to, if I ever type JCTC, I want to type Jefferson Community Technical College. So I'm going to add that, and I'm going to close it. Close this. And so now, anytime I type JCTC, boom, it's automatic. Oh, look, I put an F in after and. Anytime I type that, it's automatically going to change it to, we'll fix that because otherwise that'll mess me up later. It'll change to whatever I have the autocorrect set at. So we'll go find it again, and we'll go down to J's. Whoops. So I put it that way. There it is. Boom, boom, and I'm just going to edit and get rid of that F. Delete. Okay. So that'll fix that. So that's things you can do with autocorrect. All right, I'm going to take a break on this, and when I come back, I'm going to do another video on this. When I come back, I will. Actually, I won't take a break. I'm just going to take a break and pause the video, and I'll come back and we'll work on citations. So I'll be back in a bit. I'm going to take a cough break. Not a coffee break, a cough break.